Break through a world where big data beats your worries. A world that gives you priority when innovations come. This is the Giga Life on Smart Signature. Simplified by the Philippines' fastest mobile data network. The choice is simple. Move up to Smart Signature and make your mark. How do I know it's meant to be? Simple, smart, ako.
We have reached episode 50 of An Eternity of Basketball, and tonight we will have a very, very special show. But before that, of course, we'd like to invite everybody to download An Eternity of Basketball on its audio form right now. Of course, it is available on Spotify and on Anchor as well. So all of our episodes are now in audio form. Keep us in the background wherever you go. An Eternity of Basketball, the podcast, is now in audio form. And of course, we are part of the Globally Ballin Network. And you can also check out the Globally Ballin podcast. And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? The Eternity of Basketball also is now on YouTube. But Globally Ballin podcast, where we take a surface level view of sports and opportunities around the world. Check that out as well. And one of our friends also here at the Globally Ballin Network has her own show. It's called Hang Time with Cassie G, where Cassie warmly gets to talk to the personalities in the volleyball world. You can check out all the social media accounts to keep in touch with all of the podcasts and vodcasts here in the Globally Ballin Network. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to wherever you are around the world. Episode 50 of An Eternity of Basketball, and we have a doozy for us, for you guys tonight. My name is Noel with Charlie Cuna. Sid Ventura will follow in just a few moments. He's there. He's there. He just made it. So Sid Ventura is with us, and today we will talk about what transpired 30 years ago. We have to go back to 1989, actually, when Borislav Stakovic declared open basketball, meaning all the professional players around the world can compete for their countries in international competition. And way before the 1992 Dream Team existed, the first ever Dream Team came from the Philippines when the PBA national team formed by PBA players, of course, saw action in the 1990 Asian Games in Beijing, China. So joining us tonight, of course, Noel Zanata, Charlie Cuna, Sid Ventura, joined tonight by former PBA MVP, who's been a guest on the show as well, Coach Allan Caidic, and one of the assistant coaches on that side, Mr. 100%, Norman Black, also joining us from the bubble in Pampanga. Good evening, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Coach Norman. How is it going there in the bubble?
It's okay. Everything has gone smoothly so far. We drove up yesterday morning, or Monday morning, and when we arrived, everything was very well organized. We were whisked right off the bus, right into the testing area where we were tested for the coronavirus. And then after that, we were told to go straight to our rooms, where I am right now. So we've basically been in the room for over a day now. And tomorrow, hopefully, our results will be out and we'll be able to start practicing already.
All right, let's hope the cabin fever doesn't bite you in these 2 days that you have to be in your holed up in your hotel room. Coach Allan, welcome back. Of course, Coach Norman also guested on our show. Coach Allan, welcome back. Kamusta na ngayon?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Coach Norman, hi, good evening. And of course, I just want to congratulate you guys on your golden episode. And thank you for making me a part of it.
Maraming salamat sa inyo. You know, imagine guys, Noel, Sid, Coach Norman was our episode 2 guest, and Coach Allan was our episode 4 guest. And it seems like it was just yesterday, but I guess it's been an eternity since then.
Well, of course, alam naman natin that these two gentlemen will shed some light on the process that happened 30 years ago. Not really today, because today was actually rest day ng Pilipinas. September 30, they did have a game. But 30 years ago, guys, think about that. Coach Norman, can you fathom that all of this actually happened 30 years ago in 1990 when we set our first professional team to represent the country?
Yeah, that was historic, actually, the fact that that happened. And we always wondered what would happen if we allowed the professional players to play as part of the national team and represent the country. And we found out that year when we went to Beijing, China. That was a great experience for me because I had battled a lot of those players as a player for so many years, particularly Sonny Jaworski. But then all of a sudden, I was his teammate and his roommate. I was his roommate there in Beijing, China. So I got to know him quite well because we were together for about 3 weeks while we were there.
Well, Coach Allan, you had a fantastic 1990. In fact, you went on, ikaw yung naging MVP noong 1990. Then, all of a sudden, you're on a plane to Beijing and you're looking around the plane. Nakikita mo yung mga pinakamagagaling na players in the PBA at that moment. What was going through your mind nung papunta na kayo, en route na kayo from Manila to Beijing na kasama nyo itong grupong ito, first-time professionals will be allowed to represent a country in a competition?
We are all excited. Kasi nga, that's the first time a professional team will allow to play internationally. So, when I got injured in that conference, the All Filipino Conference, I got really down and frustrated dahil feeling ko baka I won't make it in that lineup. Pero hook or by crook, dapat nandun ako. It's a history in the making for us. Kaya dapat nandun ako. Kaya good thing, recover in time and napasama sa lineup.
Nice.
I'll ask a question to Coach Norman. We'll talk about the players later, but Coach Norman, how did you end up becoming part of the coaching staff for this team? You had some sort of coaching, of course, rivalry, playing coach kind of thing going on with Coach Sonny Jaworski, and all of a sudden you're an assistant together with Coach Rino Salazar, and then as you said, you roomed with Coach Sonny. How well did you know him prior to this, and how close were you after this entire experience with Coach Sonny?
Well, you have to remember, during that time, we both worked for the same company. He worked with Ginebra. I worked for San Miguel. They were both owned by the San Miguel Corporation. So in that way, we did have a sort of relationship because Mr. Bear Novato was the manager at that time. And the managers of all the teams were very, very close. So in a way, we were teammates. We were working for the same company, but on the court, we had been to war quite a few times against each other. And, Sonny was a very physical player. So we always had confrontations with him during the course of the game if we were playing against him. And I was really interested in working with him because, there was almost like a legend behind Sonny. How come he was able to play so long? How come he was so strong on the basketball court? And from working with him and being able to live with him for a few weeks, I found out that he was a very dedicated player or person, and he worked very hard. I mean, Sonny was lifting dumbbells every day when we were there in our condo there in Beijing. I mean, he would get on the floor and do his sit-ups and his push-ups, and he was really into conditioning. So I'm not sure why he chose me. Maybe because we had just won the Grand Slam the year before. But I was added to being part of the coaching staff. And of course, I had a few players on that team at that time too.
Okay.
Coach Norman, I have a question about the composition of the team. So you guys got where the PBA already said, all right, we're sending our professionals here. What was the thought process or the process in acquiring all of these players, at least in the pool initially, and then finally choosing the final 12?
Well, if you remember back in those days, we did not really have much preparation for the national team tournaments. We basically took the best players available at that time from the PBA teams. And let's face it, like you say, it's a dream team. It was almost like an all-star team coming from the PBA, where the best players were part of that team. At least most of the best players were. So we knew we needed big men, but of course we weren't that big. I mean, we had Benji Paraz, we had Ramon Fernandez, we had Chito Loizaga, and Chito was the one who did most of the heavy work against the centers of the other team, despite the fact he was only about 6'3". But, we just took the best players available at that time. That was really the thought process.
Yeah.
Sige, Sid.
Coach Allan, I have a question now for you. You mentioned you were injured. I remember that game. It was all Filipino conference against, I think, Pure Foods, game 6, and you ended up actually missing game 7, which Presto went on to win. And I recall there was really some concern if you would be able to join if your hand injury would be able to kill right away, what was going through your mind naman nun, as the deadline was approaching for the submission of the final lineup? Were you given any assurances by Coach Sonny or the back that you would still be included?
What I remember that time was, I think after 2 weeks, they send the lineup, the pool, and I was included in that lineup. So what I did was join them in the practice, even if my home is still in Aspat, yeah. But I still joined the practice on the sideline, doing some conditioning drills, and then listening to the coaches regarding the plays and the system coach sa team. Yun nga, hoping that uh, in time they will select the final 12, I'll be ready already. So, si Coach Abali, the doctors then was Dr. Canlas and Dr. Rivera, making sure double effort to look at my hand. At the same time, yun nga, minumonitor para just in time to make that final lineup, I'm ready. Yun, that's what I recall in that.
Yung first game nyo ba, was there any pain when you shot the ball?
Yeah.
The first game?
That's been the early part. What I did was just to get in shape. I shoot with my right hand, yeah. And then eventually I started practicing on the passing, the dribbling, but making sure na it's heavily taped. And then I put some what do you call this? Parang wristband para hindi siya tumulas.
Leucoplast.
Yeah, some protection. They put a metal cast na nilagay doon just to protect the hand. Eventually, I played with the pain. And even game nandun na kami sa Beijing, I still hurting. Talagang andun lang talaga yung dedication ko to help the team win and to be part of that 1990 Asian Games.
Okay, before we continue, we'd also like to welcome another member of that 1990 Asian team, a four-time PBA MVP, and finally overcoming technical issues kayo, Don Ramon Fernandez. Gandang gabi, Don Ramon. Welcome back.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Coach Norman,
You made it.
Charlie.
Kamusta?
My question, Don Ramon, when was the last time you talked to Coach Norman Black before this?
A few weeks or last month, I suppose, we were in the same forum or something like this. Yeah.
We just did a Zoom together recently.
Okay,
months
great.
ago.
Okay.
I think people are talking more often now on Zoom than they did in real life before the quarantine happened.
The last time we talked with Norman was we reminisced on what we did to each other inside the court.
Yeah, that was always interesting. Yeah.
That's a topic for another day. We can talk about that. Just the two of you. Huh?
So Don Ramon, ako naman, tatanong ko muna sa'yo, Don Ramon, when you were made part of this team, news spread around the Asian Games that there's this 39-year-old player from the Philippines who will be representing the country. And then they were looking around and they said, I don't see any 39-year-old on the team kasi nag-ahit pala kayo ng time na yun. So what was it like, Don Ramon,
Nag-iba yung kulay ng buhok.
They thought I was 19 still because when I joined in the first Asian Games, I was the youngest. I was 19. And this time, I was the oldest. So they completely forgot about me.
And again, Don Ramon, going back to that, to the selection, yung selection yun sa team na yun yung time na that was just barely months after the 1989 All-Star Game nung then you and Coach Sunny finally put the past behind you. What was it like now working with Coach Sunny as your coach for the first time, actually?
Well, there was really nothing extraordinary about it because we were teammates for 10 years before that. No? And, we players usually adapt to any situation. as far as the team is concerned, with regards to the team is concerned. So we adapt to any situation. But it wasn't really something extraordinary. It's just that we were faced with a job to do. So we have to work hard together, everybody in that matter.
See, Coach Allan, I'd like to ask you, when you found out who the other players were in the pool that they were forming for that 1990 team, were you surprised to see Don Ramon Fernandez's name included in the pool?
No, not at all. Kasi he's been playing really well. That no. He got MVP siya 1988 ba?
Yes. Correct.
So ando pa yung prime years niya. Same thing with the other players. No, ako, sabi ko pa, that I'm 27 years old that time, and that was my best year siguro. I could say that's my best year in the PBA. Kaya, I make sure na mapasama talaga ako doon kahit na injured ako. Even if I'm not 100%.
Mhm. Okay.
Coach
Yeah,
Norman,
Coach Norman.
go ahead, Sid. Go ahead, Sid.
Okay, hindi. Coach Norman, yes, you coached many of the players on that team at one time or another during your coaching career in the PBA, but there are also those you didn't coach. Which ones among those that you were coaching for the first time were you were pleasantly surprised to discover something about that you didn't know before?
I'm having a hard time hearing the question.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's see.
Have to make it. Yeah. There's an audio problem with Coach Norman. That's one of the problems we were having earlier. I'll try to repeat the question, Coach Norman. What Sid was asking was some of the players on the team you had never coached before. Did you find anything that pleasantly surprised you about these other players that you've never coached before, like the Ginebra guys or some of the guys from Presto?
Well, I had not coached some of the players before. You're correct, but I played against them, so I knew them already. Remember, this is 1990, and I think Mon and I, we won 2 championships in 1988 together at San Miguel, and of course we won the Grand Slam in 1989. I came back and played that following year, 1990. So I knew all of the players because I'd actually gone up against them on the court. And the thing that really surprised me the most was I always knew that Chito Luizaga was a good player because he was the one who always guarded me whenever I played against his teams. But I didn't know he was that strong. I mean, what he did against the North Korean that time, I think the North Korean was 7'4", I believe.
Yeah, I think he was 7'8".
7'8".
He was 7'8". Yeah.
I had a whole new respect for Chito Luizaga after that game because of what he did that particular game. So some of the players did surprise me. You asked the question to Mon. I mean, why would he not be on the team? He was one of the best big men in the league even at that time. So he should have been on the team. Of course, Allan played very well. Samboy Lim had some really good moments in that tournament for us. So, yeah, you're right. I didn't coach everybody, but I was familiar with everybody at that time.
Okay.
Coach Norman, during the selection process, were there some players that you felt should have made the team but didn't?
Well, I thought at that time we took the best players. I mean, remember, our preparation was not very good for that particular tournament because at that time, it was really total concentration on the PBA, and there was no concentration on the PBA players representing the country in the national team tournament. So we were put together at the last second, as we were in the 4, 5, 6 years after that. Not have very much preparation. So I think Coach Sonny just had to choose the best player available at that time. He didn't really have much time to really think about, debating on who he was going to take. He just had to make decisions.
I'm gonna run down the lineup, the final 12 lineup, and here are the players that represented the country in 1990. You had number 4, Hector Calma. Number 5, Ronnie Magsanok. Number 6, Alvin Patrimonio. Number 7, Benji Paras. Number 8, Allan Caidic. Number 9, Samboy Lim. Number 10, Ramon Fernandez. Number 11 was Dante Gonzalgo. Number 12, was Ives Tigdadice. Number 13 was Zaldiria Lubit. Number 14 was Tito Loizaga. And of course, number 15 was Ray Cuenco. And that number 13 guy was supposed to be Jerry Codinera, but he had hepatitis and had to be replaced with Zaldiria Lubit. So I'm going to ask Charlie and Sid, what did you think of that lineup when you first saw it?
Well, obviously, I was really excited to have that whole team together. I think it was one of the best teams that you could ever put together. Some people were questioning the inclusion of the two Ginebra players. I remember at the time, Gonzalgo and Cuenco. But that's Coach Sunny Jaworski's team. So why not get some guys who are familiar to you, right? I'm pretty sure that was the justification there. But I felt really bad when Jerry Codinera could not go. And Coach Allan, how did you feel when you found out that your partner could not make it with you guys on the trip?
Oh, wala naman. Basta kami, we just want to, the name guys, want to play your best. Kasi we don't have any naman to, sino papupunta sa Final 12, di ba? Really, should sana if he could paglaro siya. But Salvi Reylo playing really well that time. Kaya maganda ka rin yun, replacement for Jerry. Kasi is one of the main guys na nag-test at that time. Kaya he was included in the lineup. Parang deserving naman din siya to be there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a good backup. Sid, ikaw.
Well, when I first heard that the Philippines is going to send an all-pro team to the Asian Games, of course, I was excited. I was a big PBA fan, a big Presto fan back in the day. Coach Allan, you were my idol when I was in college. And I thought the lineup was pretty solid. And but my question is, there was some chatter back then about getting a naturalized player, specifically you, Coach Norman. There was some talk, the BAP naturalizing you so that you could also join the team in the Asian Games. Was there any truth to this? Did they ever discuss that possibility with you?
Well, there was a lot of discussion about me being naturalized when I first joined San Miguel as a player coach. And the person behind that was Mr. Danding Kawanko. He was the one who was really sponsoring that and supporting that. But if you remember correctly, he left in 1986.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where everything stopped after that, because he didn't return for a few more years down the road. And nobody with the national team even discussed that with me after he left. He was the one who was really supporting that. He was the one who was backing it. And the process was in place because I was already a permanent resident, which I still am up to now. And that's the first step. And the next step was to become naturalized. And there were a lot of processes I would have had to go through. But I would have had to do that with his support. And once he left, that all changed. But initially, that was the idea under Ron Jacobs, Coach Ron Jacobs. I was going to play under him. He was the one who was actually supporting that idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good to shed some light on that, Coach Norman, because I've always wondered why you were never the first naturalized player coming out of the PBA among the imports. But my question now is for Don Ramon Fernandez. Don Ramon, of course, being the statesman now of the team, you had a lot of big guys that you had to mentor already when you were there sa Beijing. But talk about this very young and raw rookie MVP na sumama sa inyo, itong si Benji Paras. Kamusta yung relationship nyo noon? At anong naiambag mo sa kagalingan ng Benji Paras?
Yeah, although I was with a very young team, and we only prepared for 14 days, Norman? Am I right? I think maybe about just 2 weeks. I was pretty sure that we will be very competitive, and I know we can beat the other countries except China, really, because I've seen the Chinese teams since way back early 1974. So China was really our main problem, and it's proven right. No, we lost to them twice in that tournament. So I was confident with the teammates that I had at the time that we were gonna make it to the championships. Really.
Yung Benji Paras talaga, Don Ramon, kasi nga maraming nagsasabi na ikaw yung nung time na yun, that was your opportunity. Parang passing of the torch yung nangyari. I mean, the four-time MVP now passing to the next big man. So talk about yung batang Benji Paras. What was your impression of him nung magkasama na kayo finally in China?
We had a very good relationship with Benji from the beginning. In fact, our personal relationship with him, you can say it blossomed in that trip. No, we had so much fun playing together. We players don't really have a hard time adjusting to one another. No? Them together in an instant, everybody clicks right away. No, so there was really no problem, and the same with the other team members. No, that's why we were successful in a way in that up to a certain extent in that tournament. No, so there was really no problem with us. We clicked right away. We became good friends. In fact, on our way home, we passed through Hong Kong that time, no? And he and Benji and Ronnie Magsanok wanted to go ahead, because they were play a game in the PBA already, Shell. Kaya niloko ko sila ng dalawa noon. Sige, pag iniwanan mo kami rito, pagdating sa PBA Malaw, pagtitirahan na tayo. Hindi na tayo magkakaibigan. They stayed on, no? We were in Hong Kong for a day or two, I think, after that tournament.
Siguro,
Yeah.
ano, may threats and intimidation, ha?
Asar na asar siguro si Charlie Pabis kay Don Ramon nun.
Sige, go ahead, Don Ramon, go ahead.
Yan ang privilege ng senior citizen, dare.
Tama. Coach Norman, how about you? I mean, you knew this kid, Benji Paras. You'd seen him, coached against him since '89. What did you see from him? Did you think, because he did have a great tournament? He was, people were holding on to him, and he was still dunking that ball in the Asian Games. And so, what did you see from him? Were you surprised that he was actually that strong and that good in those Asian Games?
No, I wasn't, because normally a lot of times when you're going up against other players, you take a look at them and you compare yourself to them, and you see where you have your advantages. And the one thing Benji had going for him is he was more athletic than almost everybody on the floor. I mean, he basically could out-jump everybody, and he was very aggressive going to the basket. That was his thing. He really shot a set shot more than a jump shot, but
yes,
he was very accurate with it. And hey, he was young. He was energetic. And Benji was a fun guy. He was a guy who enjoyed the game. He loved playing the game of basketball. But I thought that he knew that he was more athletic than most of the other guys from the Asian countries, and he really tried to take advantage of that.
Can I just have a follow-up with Coach Norman? Coach, what was your designation as a coach, as an assistant coach? Did you have a specific role to work with the big guys, or were you supposed to be scouting for defense or something? What was the role that Sonny asked you to assume as an assistant coach?
Well, I mostly concentrated on the defense. Reno Salazar was the other assistant coach, who was much closer to Sonny George, because he was his assistant coach in the PBA for so many years. And of course, he would be closer to Coach Sonny. But at the same time, Sonny gave him the responsibility to scout the other teams and try to come up with decent defense that we could go up against them with. And that was basically my responsibility. But with Sonny, it wasn't really, he didn't put you in a box and say, hey, you can only do this. We all contributed as far as the coaching was concerned on offense to defense, and he was very open-minded to listening to his assistant coaches at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question now para kay Coach Allan. Coach Allan, naalala natin the previous Asian Games. Napakapait ng pagkatalo natin noong 1986. That was the time na we talked about it during your episode na ikaw na sana magiging hero para sa Pilipinas pero charging foul ka daw nung time na yun, kalaban natin ng Korea. Tapos ngayon, you're going back to the Asian Games with guys like Sampoy Lim, Ronnie Magsanok, Alvin Patrimonio. Ito yung mga kakampi mo noong 1986. May added motivation ba sa inyo na kailangan natin bumawi, guys? Dapat champion tayo noong 86.
Well, yes, you can say that. Kasi pero sa amin kasi, before we entered the PBA, most amateur players then, or collegiate players, the vision or the goal is to represent the country. Yan yung unang-unang dream ng mga players ng araw before joining the PBA. So, when we joined the PBA, ako noong 1987, parang you're surrendering your your slot sa national team. Kaya nga noong 1990 when they opened it to the amateur players, we were so excited in the Samboy kasi we will have a chance again to represent the country. So more than the result and it's the pride of representing the country again. Yun yung first and foremost na nasa mind namin na kailangan we have to perform well and do for the country. Yun.
Okay. Pero yun nga, yung naalala ko talaga, ang sakit pa rin ng pagkatalo natin ng 86 Asian Games and the way you guys performed doon sa 1990. We're gonna get to your game by game in just a few moments. Pero Don Ramon, ikaw naman nung nasama ka na finally sa lineup na yon, and then did they ask you to tell stories about nung 1974? Ano nangyari sa atin noon? Nung huling nag-champion tayo. Tapos, what were the yung mentorship niyo sa buong team? What was it like being among these guys?
Wala na at that time, Noel. Nakalimutan na yung several decades ago. The 74, no? We were... wala na. Yung present situation na lang ang kapag-uusapan with regards to basketball. And I was with the San Miguel team already I was in my second year with them. I joined them in 88. So basically, hindi na napag-usapan yun. Walang napag-uusapan na gano'n.
Okay. So basically guys, yung nangyari din sa Pilipinas during that competition already, nalagay tayo sa ano bang grupo natin doon? Sa kasama na Group C.
Group C with Pakistan and Japan. Sa elimination round, and your first game was, I don't know if you guys remember, it was against Pakistan. And well, it was basically a cakewalk, 129-81. Yung score. No, Coach Allan, I remember you scored like 4 3-point shots in this game against Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken. You scored 4 straight, but your hand was heavily bandaged. Do the three of you have recollections about this particular game? This was the first game. Were there any jitters? And
Coach Allan
Coach Allan muna, yeah.
Ako? Sorry.
Yeah, yung Pakistan game, Coach Allan.
Pakistan, yung opening game.
Hindi ko na masyadong maalala yun.
Madali kasi kalaban. No? Pero actually, 129-81 was the final score.
Yeah.
129-81, immediately what comes to my mind is, how did we give Pakistan 81 points?
Coach Norman, can you answer that
Huh?
question?
Coach Norman, why did we allow 81 points? Pakistan.
Actually, guys, the whole thing was a new experience for us. We did not really know those teams. Now, just being honest with you, we had no time to scout those teams. It's not like today where a Gillis team going into a national team tournament, they've scouted all of their opponents before they actually play against them. We didn't scout any of our opponents until we actually got there. So we didn't really know. And at the same time, the best way to beat teams sometimes is just outscore them. And that's what we did.
But I think, Coach, that overemphasizes the way the fans see the PBA players. They have such high regard for the pros. that when you don't play as well as they think you should, they're disappointed and they feel really bad about it. And there's a lot of pressure also. Don Ramon, do you remember? Did you guys feel any pressure from the local fans or the Pinoy fans, since you guys were supposed to be the dream team of the Philippines gonna play in that thing? Did you guys talk about it? Parang may pressure na merong kasama.
Dami Pinoy na nun sa Beijing. No?
Wala na akong maalaala as far as emotions are concerned.
Yeah.
But definitely, there was a pressure because the China was really the team to beat at the time. Of course, we felt the pressure. Plus, the fact ang hirap maglaro doon sa Beijing at the time. You're not used to the climate, no? Ang hirap huminga, probably a lot more higher altitude than compared here sa Manila. That was the most, what do you say, situation na naalaala ko. Ang hirap mong pawisan dahil medyo malamig, ang hirap huminga. After 5-10 minutes, hinahabol mo na yung hininga mo, no? So, tama talaga yung sinasabi mo na yung home court advantage. So, yun ang pinaka-disadvantage din namin. Isa sa malaking disadvantage namin there.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember stories lang about the treatment that you guys received in Beijing. You're obviously a marked team, the first all-pro team, and it appears the hosts went out of their way to make things very uncomfortable for you guys, whether it was the trip to the practice facility and the driver dropping you off from far away from the venue, or little things like that. Yeah, Coach Norman's already smiling. Yeah, do you recall any of that kind of treatment, Coach Norman?
Well, the thing I remember most about the trip, and maybe the two guys can verify this, is I found that Beijing was just a little bit too disciplined for me. I remember if we stood up in the bus, the security guard after he was a military guy, would tell us to sit down, despite the fact that the military guy was about 19 or 20 years old, and he's telling men what to do. He's telling us to sit down. If you walk down the street, they made you walk on the right side of the street. You could not cross over on the sidewalks. You had to be on one side of the sidewalk when you walked. So there was a lot of discipline there that we weren't really used to. Let's put it this way: there were some adjustments to the culture there in China at that particular time. I think Mon would agree with that. There was a lot of adjustments as far as that we had to make when we arrived there.
Sid, in relation to your question, I remember this kasi since Beijing or China is a communist country, tama, Coach Norman said it right, they're really strict. I remember every time we have a game, syempre some athletes or part of RP delegation wants to watch our game. So they will join us in the bus. Syempre, before the bus leaves, bibilangin kami, the guards, the Chinese guards will count everyone. So they won't allow too many people in the bus. Ngayon, syempre, nakikipag-ano kami na we have to explain to them that these are our supporters, our co-players, they want to watch our game. Okay, they will agree. So we go to the venue. After the game, kung ilan yung number, like halimbawa, they allowed 30 people in the bus. Kailangan yun, pabalik ang village, it's 30 again. So hindi aalis yung bus, it's only 24 or 25. And we cannot avoid sometimes the fans or the fellow athletes will stay behind and watch other games. So kaya they will go to the other venue to watch
Right.
sport. So talaga nagkakaroon ng discussion. And then another thing is, when we go back to the village, sometimes, syempre, we have a tendency to if we see a convenience store and then we'll tell the bus driver, stop, we'll buy something. They won't allow that. Basta point to point sila. And then ilan yung umalis, kailangan yun din yung dumating.
Grabe naman.
That's what I remember.
Yeah. Well, can expect that from them. But
Don
sige,
Ramon,
Noel.
may ganun ka rin mga recollection about the difference in the culture in China?
Well, sa akin yung pagkain, after a week of eating in the commissary, medyo masang na yung amoy ng commissary, at saka yung taste ng pagkain. I think it happened, I'm not pretty sure, but it also happened in Beijing that the Filipinos would bring some. Dinadalhan ba tayo, Alan, ng mga Filipino cooking noon, no?
Yeah, that's true.
Dinadalhan kami ng mga kababayan natin ng mga lutong Pinoy because we wouldn't want to eat anymore in the canteen, where all the athletes eat. So basically, ganun lang naman,
Okay, but
Well, just so you know lang.
sige, Coach. Sige, Coach.
Last year, the World Cup was held in China, and a lot of my media friends who were there were actually also complaining about the food.
Yeah, we have canned foods sa room. May mga padalang sila Mr. Yanga, at saka ang Pure Foods, Swift, padalang corned beef. So yun yung mga alternative food namin. At the same time, the delegation, the Philippine delegation sometimes cooks adobo or binagogan for us. Kaya, well, pampered kami nun.
Okay. No, but I want to ask Coach Norman. Remember, you played China twice in that tournament, and they were the home team. Remember 5 years ago in Changsha, we were together in Changsha under Coach Tab Baldwin, and you remember all the tricks that they played on us when our bus didn't want to start, and they started fixing our net when we were warming up already for the championship game, and all these things. Did you guys get any of that way back in 1990? Was there something like that already cooking?
I can't remember it being as bad as it was in Changsha, where they took us up a one-way street.
Yeah, the one-way street. We almost died.
We would have died because it's like traffic coming towards us, and we're going up the wrong side of the street. And then just before the championship game, our bus broke down in Changsha. So I don't think it was as bad in Beijing as it was in Changsha. But I will tell you this. I will say this, and I hope people don't get mad at me. I think the Philippines is a great host whenever they host these tournaments for the national teams. Because some of the things I've experienced, like we played in Japan, Hiroshima, and then all of a sudden in the battle for third place, the last game against Japan, our bus driver gets lost. And we end up getting to the game like 30 minutes before the game. Things like that seem to happen whenever the Philippines is on the road in one of these Asian countries. But when they come to the Philippines, I tasted the food. The last time the Philippines had the tournament here, the food was great. It was great. I mean, I don't think anybody from any country was complaining about the food. So, maybe we don't treat them the way they treat us sometimes. But yeah,
maybe we should. Maybe we should.
I don't know about that.
I don't think that's
right?
What was the second game after Pakistan? Who did we play?
We're going to talk
Japan.
about Japan in just a few moments.
Yeah, we'll watch a video of that.
Yeah, we're going to have an animated discussion with Don Ramon Fernandez, Allan Caidic, and Coach Norman Black, all members of the 1990 Beijing Asiad. 30 years ago, this is their 30th anniversary. We're going to have more memories when we return right here on An Eternity of Basketball. Stay with us.
Walang imposible, sige lang simple. Abot mo ang mundo, malapit malayo, sama-sama tayo. Hanggang sa dulo, ano man ang pagsubok, di susuko. Alam kong kaya mo, sige lang simple, sige lang simple. Walang imposible.
And it's that time of the show once again to remind everybody that An Eternity of Basketball is now in audio form. So you can download all of our past episodes. The episode that we had Allan Caidic, the episode that we had Norman Black, the episode that we had Ramon Fernandez. They are all available now on Spotify. And you can also check us out now on YouTube. An Eternity of Basketball is now also on YouTube. So not only do you get the audio version, but all the videos are also available now on YouTube from our past and present episodes. We are also part of the Globally Ballin Network, and they also have the Globally Ballin podcast, a show where we take a surface level view of sports and opportunities around the world. Check that out as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and more. And Cassie Gormley has her own show as well. It's called Hang Time with Cassie G. This is about volleyball, all about volleyball and the personalities behind it. Check out all their social media accounts so you can check out Cassie's show, An Eternity of Basketball, and everything that happens here and the Globally Ballin Network. Once again, we continue with An Eternity of Basketball. Myself, Noel Zarate, alongside attorney Charlie Tuna, Sid Ventura, and of course our very special guest, Don Ramon Fernandez, Allan Caidic, Coach Norman Black, as we take us back 30 years ago to the 1990 Asian Games, the first time that professionals were allowed to participate in the open basketball era. So we're talking about that game. The next game was against Japan, and Coach Norman, as you know, Japan was ranked higher than us at the time in the FIBA World Ranking. So what was the expectations coming into that game after an easy win against Pakistan?
The game against Japan was a big question mark. It was one of those games that we had to win if we wanted to make it to the finals. If we had lost to Japan, I don't think we would have made it. And I thought we played very, very well. We stepped up to the plate, and we did very well against them. But that was a crucial game for us. Remember, I don't think we played South Korea in that particular tournament. We
No, you did not. Mm-hmm.
So we didn't play them, but we had to get past Japan to be able to get to China. And so that was a very, very important game for us. We played very well.
Yeah. During the preliminary round, the score then was 86 to 78. Yeah, a low-scoring game in that win against Japan in the preliminary round. So that already fortified our entry into the quarter-final round. So, Coach Allan, nung game na yun, naalala ko, it was more of Benji Paras trying to get his way against the bigs. Parang nakikipagkiskisan si Benji against the big guys of Japan. And that freed up guys like yourself, Ronnie Magsanok, to take all of those open shots. So maybe a lot of credit goes to Benji Paras also for disrupting the Japanese style.
Yeah, that's true. I remember we got our timing in the second half, the third quarter.
Yeah.
I think we were down by 12 points ng halftime.
14.
We had this run na parang 18-0 blast or something. And then that's where we got our cushion and coast along the game. I know it's the first half is really uphill battle kasi they're leading most of the time and we cannot hit our shots that time nung halftime and nung first half. Tapos medyo physical yung game at saka syempre we don't have the scouting report on their players that time parang we're still nakangapa kami lahat So but eventually come second half we got our timing tapos we got that win.
Okay, but so that was the game we were down big at the half, no? Tapos ang ganda ng start natin sa second half and we were able to catch up. What happened at halftime? What was the locker room atmosphere? What was the speech given? Who remembers what Coach Sani said to light you guys, to light that spark, and then you came out roaring in that second half? Do you recall? Any of you?
Not me. The only thing I can remember that stuck to my head in that game against Japan was, I don't know which part of the game that was, when Coach Sani pulled me over during a timeout and told me, Mon, you have to do something about this already. You have to make your move, something like that, no? Gawin mo na lahat ng kaya mong gawin para sa game na to. So yun lang ma-remember ko doon sa game. But as far as how the game went on, mabuti pa si Allan, alam niya yung takbo ng first half. Kasi ako, wala lang.
Apat sa sunod-sunod na 3 points si Coach Allan doon.
Kaya nga
Because Coach Allan scored 16 straight.
I have a thing na in-upload ko sa YouTube channel ko. That's why remember
That's
the
what we're
team.
going to show right now from your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I have the
Bianca, did
team.
you see that? Yeah.
Yeah. This is care of Coach Allan's YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
14 points down.
14 points
Here's a
down.
toss in the tap one by Benji Paras
Yeah.
again. He tapped it over. Goes back, and we've got the first hit by Allan Caidic.
Finally, he takes one from the outside. Boy, he's really been cold in the first half.
Right, 43-31. Headcalma sticking to Sato. Sato is very quick. And it's Rico Sala getting the handoff. The pass intercepted beautifully by Allan Caidic. Over to Headcalma. Calma back to Caidic. A triple try.
Boom!
Okay, habang naglaro, what was it like, gentlemen, being in that gym? It's supposed to be in China, but it felt like we're in Rizal, Korea.
43-34. The lead cuts down to 9 points. And it's Yamazaki again. Over to the cutting. Yama moves on. The breaks are going.
Grabe yun eh. Sunod-sunod talaga tayo rito. Ang galing nung habol.
Nobody switched, by the way, on Toyama as he drove in.
Samboy.
Boom!
Oh, there. So it's three
Diba?
consecutive three-point shots.
Grabe!
Wala na yung benta sa kamay, ano? May benta pa ba sa kamay yan?
Pero,
Meron pa?
And now they will have to open up. They will have to unclog.
It's really a shame that these are the best copies we have of these games. We should have clearer copies of these games because these are the best.
Right, and then somebody left go to
Yeah. The commentators, by the way, I think this is Dick Ildefonso, no? And
Dick
Joaquin
Ildefonso and Joaquin Trillo.
It was a foul by, it should be Toyama.
Number 4 and number 5.
That's the third foul by Toyama.
Grabe yung habol na yun. That was crazy. Coach Norman, what was going through your mind when you were seeing all those three-pointers going in?
Just very simple. That's why they're pros.
Actually, I lost you guys for a little while. I just got back.
Oh, okay. We're watching Allan Caidic in this game against Japan. He was just knocking down shots one after the other in the second half.
Well,
So we could catch up.
Any of his teammates were surprised. I mean, he was a guy who scored 79 points
That's a 6-point
in a
advantage
PBA
for
game.
Japan. The Filipinos are looking
His nickname is Trigger Man. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
we were just happy to see that because that was our way of getting into a better position moving into the playoffs.
No,
No matter how
that's,
far you are, yeah, no matter how far you are from the screen, you know it's Samboy him taking the free throws, right? Because of his high socks.
high socks and the way that he muscles up his hair before he takes the shot. But you know, as great as Allan played in this tournament, Coach Allan played great, but Samboy also played great. He was also part of the Mythical Five.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one actually who made it to the Mythical Five. The tournament's all best 5 team.
Don Ramon, talk about Samboy Lim, yung emergence niya dito sa game na ito. You've been teammates for a long time sa San Miguel and then dito sa tournament na to, nagpakita na naman sa Samboy why he's such a great international player. Talk about Samboy Lim as an international player.
Well, yeah, I think mas yung abilidad ni Samboy Lim, pwede rin talaga sa international. He can create situations on its own. So kayang-kaya niya maglaro talaga sa international play. We all know the razzle-dazzle type of game of Samboy. So we just fitted sa mga games na ganito, no? That's why he was in the team in the first place, no? And I think he was even playing injured in the tournament, no? If I remember right, ini-injectionan pa yung balikat na during the time in the game. You know, am I correct, Allan?
Yeah, meron yata siyang slight injury.
Oo, may injury siya sa shoulder at the time. But you know naman si Samboy, pag naglaro, baliwala yung mga injuries na ganyan.
Yeah, he only has one speed and all out. All out lang talaga si Samboy. And I guess that also contributed to his injuries as well.
And I believe also, right, I think it was after this tournament, he had surgery. Rotator cuff issue yun kay Samboy.
That's correct, that's right.
You know, I'm looking at some of the Filipino players. Benji Paras is wearing an undershirt. I know Yves Dignadise also would wear an undershirt. And I'm trying to, if you look at them now, how come the shirt was so loose, no? Now they wear all these tight compression shirts. But now,
Di pa uso
back
dati.
then, di ba, Coach Allan, yung t-shirt ni Benji parang 2 sizes bigger eh.
Well, wala naman kasi supply ng araw na
Oo.
like,
Grabe, Samboy.
No, there's Samboy again.
if you're wearing bright uniform, despite dark
Tama.
I have a question sa sentro ng Japan. Ano? Benji is guarding him, but he looks a lot taller than Benji.
Yeah, he's 7 foot.
Boom!
Oh,
Boom na
another
naman.
point shot. So
Masakit
Japan
yung kamay nyo
outside
dito,
of-
Coach Allan, ano? Nung game na to, masakit pa rin yung kamay nyo, pero tira ka pa rin ng tira, ano?
Pagka United, libre talaga eh. I'll take advantage.
Coach Norman, Coach Allan saying his hand was hurting when he was doing all of that.
Yeah, because he was shooting too much. That's why his hand was hurting. We talked earlier about the disadvantage of not being able to scout the other teams, but we also had an advantage that they did not really know the Philippine team that well, the other team. And a guy like Allan, who's really a three-point shooter, who can post up, and a guy like Samboy, who's very athletic, they really got away in this tournament because I don't think the other teams were really prepared for them.
There you are, Coach. In the sweater. You're wearing the sweater.
Who chose that uniform, the coach's uniform, Coach Norman?
We can stop the video for a while.
Our manager, I think his name was Goting
Gotenkok, yeah.
Gotenkok, yeah.
He actually took us out and actually purchased those sweaters for us. So we actually went out and purchased those sweaters. They're in Beijing. We bought those.
Oh, so it wasn't made in the Philippines. It was bought in Beijing.
Hmm?
It was purchased in Beijing, not made in the Philippines.
Those particular sweaters, we actually went out and bought those in Beijing. Yes.
Well, everything's made in China anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Right? It doesn't matter where you buy it.
Yeah.
That was a crazy game. What a game. Galing. Coach Allan, that's one of the games that will stick out forever in your career, which is why you put it on your YouTube channel. But what's the thought process, Coach Allan, when you're down 14 and you're trying to catch up? Ano yung mental part na nangyayari sa'yo dyan, Coach Allan?
Basta we just have to perform well or do better than the first half. Kasi I think that for us, very important kasi sa placing in the quarterfinals. Kasi if we lose that game, we won't be the number one doon sa group natin. So we will be bracketed sa kabilang grupo, and then most likely in the crossover, we will end up sa China or something. Parang gano'n eh. So it's very important for us to win that game para mag-top tayo sa bracket. Parang it's a choice eh. Gusto mo bang makasama ang China sa quarterfinals or sa semifinals crossover? Kasi yun ang pinakamahirap eh. What if mapunta ka sa kabilang grupo and then you end up losing to Korea, and then sa crossover semifinals you will play China. So mahirapan kang pumasok sa finals, di ba? So that's one of the concern at time. We really have to win that game. At saka syempre statement game yun eh, because everyone, almost every teams are looking for us eh, dahil nga masyadong publicized yung all pro team o professional players yung mga to. So parang na-hype masyado.
Yeah.
Attention and expectations. Mabuti lang at yung North Korea is there also. First time to join the Asian Games after so many years. So medyo yung focus inside the village is dun sa North Korea na-shift hindi na masyado sa Philippine team.
Correct.
Yeah. Also because they have that giant, what? Yung 7'5" guy.
7'8".
7'8" yun.
Who's probably the tallest athlete in the Asian Games, regardless of sport.
Yeah. What was our next game after Japan?
North Korea in quarterfinals.
Okay, that was the one. And that's what Coach Norman was talking about earlier when Chito Loizaga did his thing, diba? Against that North Korean 7-8 giant. And the guy scored 20-something points, but he wanted to kill Chito Loizaga. He wanted to kill him. He was frustrated. He was complaining to the referees. He couldn't believe that a 6'3" guy was keeping me out of the paint. Anong pakiramdam? Because, Coach Norman, Coach Mon, Don Ramon, Chito Loizaga guarded the both of you many times in your careers. So were you surprised at all that he was doing this to a 7'8" guy?
Well, we were laughing that the 7'8" guy was also as thin as a toothpick, so he wasn't really hard for Tito to put outside of the keyhole. No? So Tito really was pushing him the whole time, guarding him. So get kind of pissed off.
Yeah. How about you, Coach Norman?
4 fouls in the first half.
Sorry. He fouled out eventually, but you, Coach Norman, I'm sure you were so proud about what Chito was doing during that time.
Well, Chito was used to playing the imports in the PBA, so he was used to playing bigger guys. Of course, not 7'8", but he was used to playing bigger guys. But the advantage Chito had was one, I think Mon will know this as a former teammate of Chito's. He had strong forearms. He had a barrel chest, and he had a strong base. So if the 7'8" guy wanted to score on Chito, he pretty much had to try to get around him because he wasn't really going to go through him. So if he could not get the ball close enough to the basket, then Chito had a good chance of keeping him away from the basket because of his strong base. So that was always his strength Chito's strength as a player.
Yeah, we lost Coach Norman there for a bit. I just want to tell you the teams that advanced to the quarterfinals, at least in that half, were, of course, the Philippines, North Korea, as we mentioned, the host nation, China, and the United Arab Emirates. So, gentlemen, Coach Allan at saka Don Ramon, so tinalo nga natin itong Korea. Actually, tambak sila sa atin by 16 points. 98-82. So, let's take a look at some of the highlights there. Kung hindi po kayo naniniwala, 6'8" yung bantay ni Chito Loizaga.
7'8",
Roddy. Sorry. 7 feet.
His name was Ri Myung-hun, but his English name was Michael Ri.
Si Michael Ri.
Ri Myung-hun.
Parang
yung binantayan ni Loizaga.
Tatay kaya yung Captain Ri sa...
Ewan ko sa'yo, Sid.
Wala, hindi kami nanonood ng mga Korean novela katulad mo eh.
Sige nga, Bianca, play mo nga yung magre-retire dahil kay Chito Loizaga.
Ayan, so
look at Benji Paras, look like a little boy.
So Chito immediately
stole the ball, no?
Yeah.
Back to Kalma. Kalma takes a medium distance jumper and misses. And we've got the ball tapped over. The Tomboy lives for a face. Perfect.
You know, when Hector Calma misses a 14-15-foot jumper, I get surprised because he never usually misses that.
Yeah. Coach Norman, at this point in Hector's career, was he already injury prone or was he still at the top of his game?
Well, I apologize. I'm here in the bubble and I can barely hear you guys.
It's the
I'm having a problem with the reception.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll ask na lang Coach Allan the same question. Coach Allan, si Hector ba nung time na ito, matindi pa rin ba o medyo pa injury prone na siya nun?
Hindi, okay po siya dyan. When we represented Asian Games, yung Hiroshima Asian Games, where he got the injury, medyo trying to see
Bagsak na yung 7.
Yeah, but he still, by sheer height, he was able to score 26 points, I think, before he fouled out. No?
Pero yun nga, that game plan, grabe yung game plan na ginawa ni Coach Tani sa ni Coach Norman. Just put Loizaga on him and he'll be able to take care of it. Look at this guy.
He was so big, he couldn't even stand up straight. He was having a hard time moving because Look at him, oh, when he's walking, parang he can't even.
Palikat na si Benji Paras.
Si Benji sa chest lang eh.
Pero we were lucky that game kasi we got 4 fouls ng first half. First half, na-dominate din ng North Korean game. And then we just got the break when we got 4 fouls. Nasira siya mind game. Piniphysical siya ni na Chito Loizaga.
There, watch Chito. Watch Chito there. Talagang binabangga siya ni Chito.
Kaya talagang Filipinos tayo ang play.
And that was the most playing time I think Chito had in the entire tournament, that game, because they really put him in for a long time para bantayan nga si Michael Rhee.
During the pre-game preparation, Coach Allan or Don Ramon, if you remember, may reaction ba si Chito when Coach told him, "Oh, ikaw magbabantay sa 7-8 bukas ah." Do you recall any violent reaction from Chito noon?
Wala akong ma-remember talaga eh.
You have to remember, this is of course 30 years ago, pero we're watching it as if nangyayari lang ng isang araw yan. Actually, kwento ko sa inyo, gentlemen, pinapanood ko itong game na ito, dun sa aking maliit na TV na black and white na ni Vico. Naalala niyo pa ba yung ni Vico nung araw? Meron akong maliit na ni Vico. Dito ako pinapanood. Hindi ko alam kung sino magkakampi. Sino magkalaban. Kasi pareho kayong naka-dark. Doon sa black and white TV ko dati.
Ayaw nga, no?
Diba? Pareho naka-dark.
How was the officiating during this tournament? Did you think that the calls were one-sided in different games, Don Ramon or Coach Allan, or was it parang just the usual kind na iba talaga magtawag sa international tournaments eh?
Well, it was the usual tawagan sa as far as I'm concerned. The usual tawagan sa international. Nothing of yung favoring a team or so. Wala naman akong naalaala.
So we ended up winning this game because not really to the heroics of Chito Loizaga, complete team effort din ang nangyari dyan. It was a 98-82 win ng Pilipinas over North Korea. But then, yung next game ng Pilipinas, Coach Norman, can you hear us already at this point? Coach Norman, can you hear us? Coach Norman still can't. Can you hear us, Coach Norman?
I can barely hear you guys. I heard you were talking about the referees.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we talked about the calls a bit.
Yeah.
I always have something to say about the referees, right?
Yeah.
I know we weren't happy with the way those games were refereed when we played China. But the problem was we played so badly, we didn't have any room to complain. When you play badly, the last thing you do is blame the referee. But we certainly had some complaints about the referees during the course of the tournament. And I think it was more because we just weren't used to playing with those type of referees. In other words, it was international.
Yes.
Basketball, they called the game a little bit different than they called it in the PBA. And we had to make some quick adjustments in that tournament.
Right.
All right. What particular adjustments? I'll ask the players. What particular adjustments, Don Ramon, did you have to do? What were the referees more? Anong tinatawag na referee na mas na ibang-iba kaysa sa PBA na kailangan nyo mag-adjust as players, Don Ramon?
It's hard to compare the tawagan, but definitely merong kaibahan, no? Medyo yung sa konting contact lang sometimes, no? But overall, in general, basically, the inconsistencies of the referees are there all the time, no? Mati sa PBA or sa international games, no? So, ever since I played, yung officiating kasi hindi ko iniisip eh. As I don't know if I mentioned it here, because for me, the most consistent thing that's happening in the basketball game is the inconsistencies of the referees. No? So
Yeah.
you just have to, stop thinking about how the calls are going. No, so you really just don't have to mind that already. So wala, hindi ko masyadong naiisip yung calls. No? It will just affect your game, no? And your mental,
Right.
So at this point of the competition, the Philippines is already 3-0. Wala pa pong talo ang Pilipinas at this point. Pero Coach Allan, eto na, China na naabang sa atin. So anong pinag-usapan niyo sa locker room before lumabas sa court? Host nation, for the first time in the tournament, mas maraming taong kumakampi sa China kaysa sa Pilipinas. Although lumalaban din yung mga ibang Pilipino na time yun. What was the locker room vibe before going up against China nung quarterfinal stage?
Hindi ko na masyado matandaan, pero but I remember because it's a host team, China defending champion, it's a big game for us. It's really a big game for us. So talagang siguro the pressure is there to beat China. At the same time, yun nga, because we're 3-0, the expectations tumataas, and then parang ano talaga, all eyes are focused on that game.
Yeah, but they came out storming, no? Parang they really wanted to please yung hometown crowd nila. They went into a big lead immediately, and then they left us behind, no? So what was at the half? I think we were down by how many na, Noel, at the half? We were down by 30 already. Was it 30 points already at the half? I think. So did we want to catch up still? Did we talk about it as a
28
team?
points. 28 points.
28 at the half. Did you still try to really, wholeheartedly try to come back in the second half, or did we say, looks like it's not our day today, let's just focus on tomorrow's game already? Is that why it went up to 65?
For us players, this player game, so syempre, when your opponent leads you by 30 points already at the half, frustration will set in. Medyo yung mapipil mo yung pagod, tapos medyo frustrated ka because sometimes you won't get the call, or sometimes parang it's easy for them to shoot. For us, parang it's very hard. Parang mapipil mo because of the crowd, it's there, and then the support. So parang it's too easy for them, and then frustration will set in. Ganun ang feeling namin. Pero we don't see naman na siguro we'll just as much as possible if we try to minimize the lead or manalo, we'll do that. Kaya lang, hindi ganun.
Pero Don Ramon, ngayon pag kalaban natin ng China, laging sinasabi ng mga Gilas Pilipinas players, ang laki nila, ang hirap kalaban kasi malalaki sila. Ganun din ba yung feeling back in 1990? Noon pa lang, ang lalaki na talaga nila?
Yes, definitely. The first time we played against the Chinese was way back in 1974 when we opened diplomatic relationship with them. No? Nakita na namin doon na malalaki talaga sila, especially the northern Chinese, the guys from the northern part of China near Mongolia. Malalaki talaga. In fact, nakita namin nila Norman yan. Even if you remember Norman, right after the tournament, we went to the disco at the Hyatt Hotel with Lito Puyat. I don't know if Norman remembers that, but they were really tall, especially the northern Chinese guys. No? So I've seen them in 1974, and I knew already by then ang kalaban talaga natin sa Asia would be the Chinese, no? Because of height factor. No? But of course, magagaling na rin sila. No? Matagal na rin silang naglalaro ng basketball even when they were still close. No? Hindi pa sila nag-open up sa international competition. Malakas na yung liga talaga nila. Marami ng mga player. Mabibilis din. No? So of course, ang biggest advantage talaga nila, which was our disadvantage, was the height factor. So can you imagine, that 1990 team, I think Benji Paras was our tallest, no?
Yes.
At 6'5" at the time, no? Samantalang yung mga kalaban namin nasa 6'10", 6'11" na, no? So, again, that was really the problema ng Pinoy, no?
Guys,
Yeah.
I
Coach.
apologize for not being able to hear everything being said.
Right,
But
right.
I did hear a little bit of the question about halftime of the game.
Yes.
Yes.
I can tell you exactly what Coach Sonny was thinking because he told me.
Okay.
When we were down by so much at halftime, he basically said, I have to save these guys for the next game. I don't think we can come back in this one. I've got to save their legs because we're going to need it to make it to the finals. And if you notice, in the second half, he didn't really play the starters that long. He went to the second string a little bit more. And his thinking was he just needed to save their legs. Remember, we're playing almost every day, back-to-back games. So if we wanted to make it to the finals, we had to win that next game. So his thinking was he just started thinking forward. I don't think we can come back from 38 points down at halftime. It's going to be really hard. We'll give it a shot. We'll give it a shot at the beginning of the second half. If we can't cut that lead down, then we're going to have to look forward to the next game.
Right, right.
Yeah, and of course, China went on to win that game 125-60, which is still one of the worst defeats the Philippines suffered in international competition. But then there was this all-important game. The final game of the quarterfinals was against the United Arab Emirates, and I was asking
The following
Coach
day.
Norm-
It was the following day. It was the following day after.
right after the China game against the United Arab Emirates. So, Coach Allan, tinatanong namin sa inyo ito kanina before we went on the air. The final score in that one was 80-75. Lima lang ang lamang ng Pilipinas against a United Arab Emirates that is not really known for basketball. What happened in that game? Bakit lima lang ang lamang natin nun in an all-important game?
Well, siguro that time, we were a bit tired with that China game because the following game yon and the following day. And then probably yung frustration about that loss, very, for us kasi players, sometimes it's mentally, it's humiliating loss, like 65 points. So pressure to that game is really high. And UAE, that team is also a strong team. Actually, pumasok sila ng quarterfinals. So that means they have a formidable lineup. I think they have. I remember there's a point guard there. I forgot the name. Good lefty. I think he single-handedly win the game for them. Just so happen parang yung collective effort ng team natin today.
Okay.
Yeah,
After
that win.
Yeah, that win. What? After that win, what's the championship game already, right?
No,
Semi-semis.
Oh yeah, semi.
Crossover semi.
Yeah, what happened there is actually yung kabilang bracket, okay lang. The Philippines will still finish number 2 in the bracket despite losing to China. But what was interesting is what happened in the other bracket where Japan, South Korea, Chinese Taipei, and Iran were all together. Because South Korea lost to Japan. Lost to Japan in the opening game, 94-91. But then Japan lost to Iran, 71-70. So nagkalabo-labo pa sila doon. And it turns out, because of what happened to South Korea, they were not able to become the number 1 team in that group. Therefore, in the crossover, Korea had to go up against China, and the Philippines had to go up against Japan. Coach Norman, if you heard what I said, when you found out that Korea was going to be, it's going to be no collision course with Korea, what was it like now in the Philippine contingent, knowing that you would be going up against Japan, a team you had already beaten before?
Well, first of all, when we lost to China, we got hammered in the press.
Yeah.
Oh.
And even though we were in Beijing, we knew about it. We heard about it. The fact that we had lost by such a large margin. So it was a welcome relief. The fact that we were going up against a team in that semis that we had already beaten and we already faced. And we weren't going up against South Korea. That was a good thing. But at the same time, we had to rebuild our confidence back because, remember, we had just got beaten so badly, and everybody in the Philippines was really hard on us at that time. They were really critical of our performance. So I thought Coach Sonny did a great job rebuilding the confidence of the players for that semifinal game. That was very, very important. The one thing you have to understand in basketball is whether you lose by 1 point or whether you lose by 30 points, it's all the same. You've got to move on to the next game. You have to move on to the next game. I thought Sonny did a great job of preparing the team for the next game, despite the fact that we lost so badly against China.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Don Ramon, nung natalo kayo ng ganong kalaki sa China, you being a former from the former national team, the old guard kumbaga ng yung dating national team, did you have anything to say to the team to help out ito si Coach Sonny get their confidence back after that big loss to China?
I wouldn't remember exactly if I have said something like that, no. But of course, we deal with that. Was not the first time that we lost that much. Not as much, no, but we experienced that also in the Tehran Asian Games when we lost about 45 points to Israel, no. So I'm pretty much experienced as far as losing that large margin of position.
Yeah.
All I can remember was I wanted to be a turtle after the game. Turtle, tinatago sa katawan. Really, yeah, I'm pretty sure we met and we talked among ourselves and what we really have to do. What's really important at that point was just to forget about everything, just like what Norman said, losing by 1 point and losing by 50 points, talo pa rin kayo, it's the same thing, no? So, the usual thing that a team would do is to really just try to erase that from your memory going into the next game.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Alan, anong memory mo nun? After that loss, tapos after winning barely against United Arab Emirates, ito kalaban nyo na yung Japan. Ano na to eh? Pag nanalo kayo, nasa gold medal match na kayo, naalala mo kung paano nyo pinaghandaan, kung anong sinasabi, kung anong usap-usapan nyo bago kayo pumasok sa court against Japan dito sa semis?
Hindi ko na exactong matandaan din, no? But I'm sure na this is a big game for us in our minds na if we win this one, we'll be in the final. So, masusurpass yung 1986 ano namin, bronze medal finish if we will win this game. Kaya, I'm sure all the players that time are really eager to win this game. Kaya talagang focus nandun yung dedication, determination to win this game.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny was in the other semifinals, South Korea actually almost beat China. Yes, 92-88 was the final score, and South Korea actually led by 7 points at halftime. But then again, it's in Beijing, so it's close to impossible to beat China in China, right? But have you ever wondered what would have happened if it would have been Philippines versus South Korea in the gold medal match? Coach Norman, I don't know if you heard that.
I'm sorry, didn't hear the question.
The question of Sid is, South Korea almost beat China. So would you have imagined what it would be like if it was South Korea going up against the Philippines in that gold medal match instead of China?
It would have been more difficult if we had faced South Korea. I think they had the stronger team. They were a stronger team than Japan that year. But why do you worry about that? I mean, everybody has we playing Japan in the semifinals. So I think the thought process at that time was, let's just beat Japan so we get another chance at China to redeem ourselves. That was the thought process at that time. But there's no question in my mind from scouting the tournament and watching the games that South Korea was the stronger team. And it just happened that they got eliminated.
But Coach Norman, at the half, we were down by 5 points against Japan. So it felt like the preliminary round all over again. When we were down 14 in the preliminary round at halftime, now we're only down 5, but we were still down against Japan. So what was the pep talk like at halftime just to get motivated for that second half?
Well, I don't know I can't remember the exact words of Sonny, but I think there was a determination on the part of everyone. I did say earlier that whether you lose by 1 or whether you lose by 38, it's still the same. But actually, in reality, it's not the same. You feel really bad when you lose by a large amount. And we really wanted to redeem ourselves and beat Japan. And this was our chance to get it done. We had been down against them the first time we played them, so I thought the players were still pretty confident that they could come back.
Yeah. What was the final score, guys, in this Japan game? This second
94-90.
So the first game we won by how many against Japan?
8 points.
So
This one was closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was closer. If I recall correctly, I think it was Dignadise who hit the dagger in that semifinal match.
Jumper, diba?
I may be wrong, but yeah, because it was like a step back jumper from the elbow, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
But goal match, another rematch with China, and this time the score was a little closer, more predictable. No, 14 points was the final winning margin of China. But were there any special instructions to the team before that gold medal match from Coach Sunny, Coach Allan?
Wala naman. This whole game, just that China is really a better team. Very superior yung height advantage.
Yeah.
Wing guys nila is a 6'7" who weigh good.
Correct.
1 Tapos sila na 7 yata. So talaga, it's very hard. Talaga yung presence. Tapos pa nila, talagang hirap.
You also have to remember that China already had, the Chinese Basketball Association was already alive noong time na, although it was only 6 years old, 1984 nagsimula ang CBA. But these players, Coach Allan mentioned a few, sila Huwei Dong, sila Wang Fei, sila Shantao, Majian, Adiljan, these were the star players already of that league. So technically, they also had a dream team, but not like the Philippines. So now looking back in hindsight, after that entire experience, Don Ramon, that was your last time to represent the country. I don't know, kasama ba si Don Ramon noong 94 sa Hiroshima?
No more. I beg
Wala na.
We won the All Filipino in 1994. We were supposed to, but I had an injury that time, so we thought I could had myself replaced in the team before.
So Ted Jericho Dinera and Alvin Patrimonio noong time na yun. But going back, Don Ramon, that was your last national team noong 1990. How special was it for you na as a PBA player nakasama ka ulit sa national team?
Well, yeah, it was an achievement of sorts because having, as I mentioned earlier, in the 1974 team, I was the youngest, and in the 1990 team, I was the oldest on the team. So for me, that was an achievement in the sense that yung longevity ng playing career ko, it spanned that much time, no?
Right,
so, yeah.
Sino yung roommate mo doon, Don Ramon, during the Asian Games?
Marami kami sa isang kwarto noon eh.
Okay,
I remember Alvin Patrimonio and several other guys. I can't remember exactly, but I could remember magkakalapit lang yung mga beds namin, no?
Okay.
So, naiinis nga si Norman at the time because in the night, we would play mahjong in the night time. So Norman was like a policeman. He was like a policeman watching over us. Kailangan 10 o'clock in the evening, tapos na yung games. No? I don't remember exactly ilan kami dun sa room na yun.
Okay ng bonding
So
yun.
it
I don't know
wasn't
if you-
two pala.
Not to room yet. Ikaw, Coach Allan, what is the fondest memory that you will take home from that 1990 team na nasabi mo kanina, special na yung nakapag-represent ka sa Philippines ng 86. Akala mo hindi na mangyayari ulit yung nag-PBA ka, pero 1990, eto na naman. And not only that, 94, 98, dire-diretso pa rin ang sama mo sa national team. So, pero being the first, among the first na nag-PBA na dun nga sa 1990 team, what was the experience like for you? What will you take home from it?
Overall, it's a great experience even though we get the gold. Pero silver medal is the highest finish after how many years, diba? So nasurpass kagad yung bronze medal in 1986. So we're so thankful and happy na rin na kahit pa paano, we bring home a medal. But dun sa 1990 na yan, if I remember it right, correct me if I'm wrong, Papa Mon, we celebrated the birthday of Benji Parasen, Papa Mon, October 1 and October 3.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Kaya wala na birthday ni Papa Mon. Advance happy birthday.
October 3. In fact, binigyan ako na ng $100 si Goting Cook that the time was birthday gift na sa akin.
Yun pala. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Coach
think you had a
Norman,
game on that day. On
Yeah.
October 3. I think you had a game on that day. Your birthday.
The funniest experience really that I will never forget in that experience was when we were going home. We were at the airport in Beijing. We were going to fly to Hong Kong, stay there for a few days, no? So habang nandun kami sa airport sa Beijing, we were just standing up. Ako, Benji Paras was there, si Lito Puyat was there. So we were just talking among ourselves, and may dala-dalang si case si Lito Puyat eh. Binaba niya sa tabi ni Benji. Sabi niya, Benji, pakitingnan mo tong attaché case ko ha. Pakitingnan ang sinabi niya eh. Pakitingnan mo to ha. Nilagay niya sa panel niya. So we're talking. Pagdating namin sa Hong Kong, sabi mo dito, Benji, nasa na yung attaché case ko? naiwan sa Beijing. So he had to call the basketball officials to Beijing to look for his certificate. Mabuti na lang nahanap, nabalik na sa kanya.
Hindi naman sinabing buhatin mo, di ba? Hindi naman sinabing
Hindi
buhatin
mo,
mo.
bantayan mo, dalhin mo. O, dalhin mo, ikaw bahala dyan. Sinabi, tingnan mo lang eh.
I remember that, Papa Mon. I was there also.
Confirmed yung kwento. Okay, Coach Norman, you think it would have made a big difference if we had at least, let's say, a month or two of practice rather than just 2 weeks?
Say that again, please.
Would it have been different? Would it have been different if we had more time to practice, not just 2 weeks? If we had, let's say, maybe 2 months of practice, 3 months?
Oh, no question. It would have made a huge difference.
Even against China.
Yeah. And against China, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I think we could have done a lot of things differently. I mean, we didn't scout them at all, which we should have done. But like I said, the preparation time was quite short. In addition to that, things have changed a little bit, right? I mean, look at the entire tournament. Even against the Japanese, South Koreans, we still lack the size. We didn't really have the size that some of the other teams have. We've made up for that now because we have an import. We have a naturalized player who has size, can help us in that area. So there are other things that we could have done probably then. But remember, at that particular time, we were just getting back into international basketball again, using the pro players. Before that, we used the NCC team, but the pro players never participated. So it was almost like we were starting from scratch.
Right.
And we had to learn our lessons first before we could really get out there and compete against teams like China and South Korea. So we did the best we could at that particular time. I don't think anybody was happy with the results. I'm sure Ramon wasn't, Allan wasn't, certainly Sonny Jaworski wasn't happy with it. We had to come home and we had to listen to it. There were a lot of negative comments because of our performance, even though we got a silver medal, which I don't think it's been done since, has it?
No,
We haven't gotten a silver in the Asian
that's the highest
Games
finish.
since.
That's the highest finish we've
In a
had
way, that was a big
in a long
accomplishment
time.
for us.
Since the early 60s, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the early 60s because we did win before. We did win.
Yeah.
We did win the Asian Games already before.
1966 yata or 62.
Yeah.
No,
Coach
my-
Norman, I have one more question for you, Coach Norman. Then in 1994, the reins were handed to you. You were now the head coach of the national team, bringing the core of your San Miguel team with a few guys from like Johnny Abarientos, Jerry Cordillera, Alvin Patrimonio, and two amateurs from Adamson University, and Marlo Aquino and Kenneth Durandez in Hiroshima. So did the lessons from 1990 affect the way that you planned for the 1994 Asian Games?
Well, when I think back to 1994 in Hiroshima, about 3 or 4 of the players actually arrived after we arrived there, maybe a couple of days before we started playing the tournament. The PBA was still going on at that time, and I believe Pure Foods still had games. So Jerry Cordillera, Alvin Patrimonio, Ray Evangelista, all of those guys showed up after we arrived in Hiroshima. So you can imagine our preparation was not very, very good for that particular tournament. I think the PBA has done a much better job of trying to make their calendar very open to helping the national team succeed. But back in those days, you can say that it was a little bit of a conflict between the national team games and the PBA representing the national team with the PBA players, because there was very little time to prepare for the players and the coaches who were coaching those teams at that time.
Yeah, baby steps, at least as far the program goes in 1990. But of course, we did reap the benefits eventually. We did finish with the silver medal twice in the FIBA Asian Championships, and in the Asian Games, we've also done pretty well. So, Sid, go ahead. You have a question.
Yes, Sid.
No, just to connect to what Coach Norman said about the team getting bashed when they came home, even though they won a silver medal, and which has not been replicated since. But I'd just like to ask all 3 of you, start with Coach Allan, just how big of a reality check were the twin losses to China in terms of Philippine basketball?
Yeah, from the very beginning, Sid, I've always felt that with the coming in of China, mahihirapan na tayo mag-champion sa Asian Games. I know that was the reality at the time. No? Sabi ko nga, yung during those times already, kung maglalaban tayo sa China 10 beses. Kung makadalawa, makatatlo na tayo, swerte nga para sa atin. No? They were just really on top of their game at the time. So, coupled with the fact na yung height factor was in their favor, mahirapan talaga tayo. No? So, I know for a fact na mahirapan na tayo to get back the number 1 spot sa China up to now. No? Mahirapan tayo.
Yeah.
Coach Allan?
Yeah, I agree with Papa Mon. The domination of China's height advantage, malaking factor talaga yun. International competition, height is really you can see right now, even the Middle Eastern countries, nahihirapan na rin tayo because matataas na din sila. Diba? So, we improve, yung Philippine basketball improve, but the other Asian teams also improve. So, medyo, it's really a tough competition for all of us. That's why I can see the difference kasi when we won 1985 EBC, the last the FIBA Asia now, ano, yung ABC meron kaming naturalized player. And then when we competed in 1986 Asian Games, we lost to China with a big margin also, parang third place po kami at the time. And then pagdating ng 1990, we lost again to China. So you can see the difference. Talagang we really needed the enforcement, naturalized player for us to win international competition.
Right.
Especially.
And even with a naturalized, hirap na hirap pa rin tayo. Diba?
No, but we are getting close, Charlie. Remember 2018, China only beat us by 3 points na lang no Asian Games. In fact, we were supposed to win that game if Poyera just made the layup. But that's
2 points. 2 points. 2 points.
Oh, sorry, 2 points lang.
I was there at the venue.
Yeah, that's right. So there, we're getting close also. Pero again, gentlemen, if you have nothing further for our 3 guests, Charlie, do you still have anything else for our 3 guests?
Right.
I was just gonna ask. Maybe si Coach Allan na lang. I'll just rapid fire a few questions to Coach Allan. Coach Allan, just answer me whether it's the first or the second that I will say. Wala na explanation. You just make your choice. I'll throw you a question. Huh? Coach Allan, Wang Libin or Majian?
Oh, sorry.
Wang Libin or Wajian?
Majian.
Wang Libin. Okay. Lee Chung-hee or Herjay?
Lee Chung-hee.
Lee Chung-hee. Hu Weidong or Zhang Bin? Hu Weidong. China or South Korea?
China.
Bong Alvarez or Nelson Asaytono?
Bong Alvarez. Birthday.
Bong Alvarez.
Ang galing yun!
Or Ramon Black or Ramon Fernandez? Just kidding. Okay, before we end, there's one question that they want to hear, the fans that are listening to us now on the followers. Do you have any finals predictions, Heat or Lakers?
There you go. Coach Norman?
Coach Norman, Heat or Lakers?
I can barely hear you guys.
Miami Heat or LA
I
Lakers?
answered your question earlier. I think I heard.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And the effect after we lost to them. Was that your question earlier?
Which one?
China. I just wanted to say that when we got back from Beijing, I really felt like somebody had stuck a pin in our balloon, because I think Warren and Allan can vouch for this, that we were almost like TV stars or movie stars here in the Philippines before we went to Beijing. And maybe, somebody like pricked the balloon, and all of a sudden some of the air came out of the balloon, and we weren't as big as we were when we left to go to Beijing. But Maud and I actually got the Chinese national team back twice. We got them back in Rizal Memorial, where we beat their national team with San Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
If Mark remember that. And then we also got them back in Phil Sports. And we beat them in Phil Sports. Then we beat their national team when they came into the Philippines. So, of course, I was part of those teams that actually beat them. And I think it was even Bobby Ray Parks who played the other team who beat the national team.
That was wasn't that the Liaoning? That was the Liaoning, I think.
It's not the same as the Asian games, but we did get them back a little bit. But I thought that we had to rebuild our reputation as a PBA after that tournament. Even though we got the silver medal, we still had to rebuild our reputation, and we also had to start rebuilding our national team so that we could compete on a regular basis.
Okay. Actually, after the Asian Games, after that Asian Games, the attendance in PBA dropped dramatically. The live gate attendance. There was one commenter who said that, but I also remember that. Yeah, it was like a big reality check to everyone that these guys weren't as
invincible. They weren't
invincible as we thought they were. They lost it. Yeah, I remember the rest of the 1990 season. The attendance for PBA games really went down after that game. So that was part of the reality check. I don't know if you remember those.
Clearly. How about you, Don Ramon? Do you follow the NBA? Any Heat Lakers predictions?
Well, to tell you guys frankly, ever since I retired, hindi na ako nanonood ng basketball, PBA, NBA. Perhaps on certain occasions, pag championship series, I'd watch a few quarters in the game. No? But totally stopped watching the games. I have had enough of basketball in
Oh,
my
I was
life.
gonna say, over basketball. Over basketball.
Na-over eternity na si Don Ramon. Na-over eternity.
That's why, like when Norman mentioned now that we played China after the Beijing games, I don't remember even, Norman, that we played them.
We played game in the PBA, Seoul, pa.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. You must understand me. After having played more than 1,000 plus games, I cannot recall right away right now. I have to go down to my memory bank to try to remember these games, no? Or have to watch them again for me to remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Okay.
I don't watch the games anymore, except every now and then, especially when San Miguel plays and during the championship. Not even the NBA. So I moved on from basketball.
Yeah. Okay.
Coach Norman, how about you? Any finals predictions between the Lakers and Miami?
Miami versus the Lakers.
Yes.
Actually, I chose the Lakers to win the whole thing, but now that Coach Spo is part of it, I hope the Miami wins.
Coach Allan, kayo naman.
That's being Filipino, Coach Norman.
I chose the Lakers. But
Laker fan ako. So Lakers tayo.
Oh, Lakers nga
Okay.
tayo. Sige.
So that's it for revisiting 30 years ago, and of course some of our guests already remember details of 30 years ago. One thing that we all remember is that the Philippines sent its best players and the first professional team to the first international competition ever since the advent of football basketball. And we did finish with the silver medal to Beijing in 1990. We'd like to thank Allan Caidic, Norman Black, and Ramon Fernandez for revisiting us dito sa Eternity of Basketball. They've been our guests before. Thank you for joining us once again. Any last greetings? I'll start with Coach Allan. Any last greetings bago namin kayo pakawalan? Coach Allan.
Thank you for this, and congratulations sa inyong 50th episode. And,
Thank you.
to watch my YouTube channel, ha?
Of course.
Of course.
Nakita mo, binunot na nga namin, Coach, yung mga videos mo.
Coach Norman, your last thoughts, and take care there inside the bubble.
Yeah, maraming salamat, guys, for inviting me over. It's nice to see Allan and Mon again. I wish your show the best of luck in the future. And anytime you need me back on, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you. We might actually do a bubble episode. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Of course, last but not least, any last message to our listeners and viewers?
Well, again, thank you for inviting me to this session. And I'm much really more concentrated right now in helping prepare our athletes for the Tokyo Olympics.
That's right.
Foremost in my mind is getting that first gold that we've been longing for in the Olympics. So
Yes.
I hope our sports lovers, our sports stakeholders and followers would support our athletes. Looking forward. That if COVID would allow us to do that next year.
Yeah. Well, you have our full support.
Yes, of course.
Maraming salamat again, gentlemen. Coach Allan Caidic, Coach Norman Black, Don Ramon Fernandez, for being with us for episode 50 And of course, nakatawid na tayo. Past our golden anniversary. So anything over this is more golden. Of course, upcoming would be episode 51. Sa Sabado po ng umaga magaganap doon. And I don't know if Bianca has the poster already, Charlie? Does
Well,
Bianca
yeah,
have
the guy that we're having on Saturday, I don't think Bianca have the poster unless if you didn't send it. But we're on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. He was kind of like Allan Caidic before Allan Caidic. Back in the 70s, early 80s, he was from FEU and he played in the PBA for UTEX, San Miguel. Who else? Gold Eagle, diba? His name is
Gallion.
Gallion also. His name is Renato Lobo. Etok Lobo will be our guest on Saturday, all the way from Chicago in the USA. So that's 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. Please join us here for episode 51 ng AEOB. Umabot na tayo na 51. We're getting old, guys.
Yeah.
But at least the show is older than us in terms of age already, Charlie and Steve. So on behalf
Salamat
of
sa
my
mga
partners,
guests.
yeah, on behalf of my partners again, so Attorney Charlie Cuna, Sid Ventura, and our guest, Coach Allan Caidic, Coach Norman Black, and Don Ramon Fernandez. Ito po si Noel Zarate. Nagpapaalam, episode 50 is now in the book. See you this coming Saturday for episode 51 of An Eternity of Basketball. Paalam.
Thank you, coaches.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
It's the NBA playoffs. And this year, everything has changed. As the whole world cheers from home, anything can happen. Get ready for the NBA's best. Competing like we've never seen before. For a chance to win it all. It's a whole new game. Watch the NBA playoffs live